Episode 30 of Soft Signal. Welcome to our review of the T20 World Cup group stage. My name is Varun. I'm joined by my co host Aditya. How's you feeling today?
Yeah, so for all of those who expected Afghanistan to beat New Zealand, me as well. I was hoping for it. Let's just face it, it's probably never going to happen in the first place. New Zealand is too professional a side to slip up against Afghanistan. But I think justice has been served. The best teams have qualified from the group, and India is not one of them. So quite a disappointing day and disappointing tournament for all India fans, I think.
Yeah, disappointing for India. It's like I said, it was before we got on this call. It was expecting Afghanistan to do us favors. Just shows us how badly the tournament has gone. We had a couple of good matches against Afghanistan and Scotland, but can't mask what went wrong in the first two games, especially if we start off badly. So we'll cover that in a bit more detail later on in this episode. But let's just review the group stages anyway. We did make some predictions before it's started. They've gone horribly wrong. We predicted India to top the group. Obviously, it didn't happen. And then from the second group, actually, thought England and West Indies would go through. Actually, West Indies would top the group. I think we'd said that West Indies would beat everyone. In fact, they lost four out of five. Yeah, they even lost to Sri Lanka. They almost lost to Bangladesh also. So they almost lost five out of five. So just a disastrous tournament for them. So semi-finalists as they stand right now. I mean, Pakistan are right now playing Scotland, and they should beat them. And assuming they do, then they will play Australia, and then England will play New Zealand. So I'm not going to ask you whether you expected this because it's obvious we didn't expect this, but who do you think looks good going into the semis, and how would you rate? We can start with with whichever group you want to talk about.
Yeah, if we can start with the England group. So I think England by far looks the strongest team, not only in that group but also in the tournament. All their players seem to be in form. Josh Butler is playing phenomenally well. Their bowlers are doing a decent job. They've just suffered a couple of injury scares. So Jason Roy probably will be ruled out of the tournament,
Yeah,
and Timal Mills is ruled out anyways.
yeah,
So that's the only blip that they seem to have suffered. But I think otherwise, the way they've been batting, none of it's just them, just England's batting that has been so good. None of the other teams
yeah,
have been so good with their batting. Um, the trend throughout this tournament has been of middling scores around the 150, 140, 150 mark because of the nature of the pitches. But England seem to be completely different from that trend. They're getting off to good starts. The only other risk apart from the two injuries is that who knows, maybe they peaked too early.
yeah.
They've just lost to South Africa yesterday, so let's wait and see if that somehow puts a dampener on their chances. Unlikely, but you never know. It could happen that they kind of go into their semi-final match feeling a little bit underconfident. But they've been the best team, I think, of the tournament, followed by Pakistan, who've been surprising actually. I mean, we didn't expect Pakistan to qualify from the group, let alone top it. But they've been phenomenal, and once again led by Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan at the top. The batting's been strong. The bowling for Pakistan is always good,
Yeah.
but it's the batting that's impressed me because they've chased well, they've set well. So Pakistan's been quite a surprise for me from this group.
Yeah, I think they also know the conditions really well. And you mentioned Babar and Rizwan and their bowling, but Shaheen Shah Afridi has just been his spell against India. It was just unplayable, and that set the tone for that match and India's tournament and Pakistan's tournament also. They followed different trajectories. So yeah, but from the other group, England, they also set the tone in their first match against West Indies, 55 all out for West Indies. No one was expecting that. And then yeah, Butler has just come into the like his innings against Sri Lanka was phenomenal. And I think yesterday they lost, but it was kind of the last group game. They were pretty much through. They had to get, I think, lose by 100 runs to not qualify. So it was they. I don't think they were playing with any. I'm not saying they didn't play with intent to win, but they it wasn't as high stakes for them. So wouldn't take too much into that. And surprisingly, Australia qualified in second place. I was actually England, South Africa, and Australia all finished on 8 points, but because of run rate, England and Australia qualified in the middle of the tournament. Australia was not looking good actually because they were, but then they had that dominating performance against Bangladesh, who everyone beat again, which is don't know if it's surprising anymore. Um, but yeah, I think, and I feel a bit bad for South Africa because I think they played really well. The only match they lost was that last over match against Australia. I think they actually played better than Australia through the tournament. But yeah, this just run rate may had let them down. Do you feel like run rate is an effective way of deciding these things, or is there anything else that could have been done?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything against the run rate. I think it's good because it means that it adds context to every match. The other way of sort of deciding between teams that end up on same points is by looking at the head to head between those teams, meaning who beat who
Yeah,
when they played. But I'm not necessarily a fan of that process. I think that the run rate uh, process makes sense because it puts every game at a equal level of importance. Uh, because then for example you play against one of the minnows and you don't kind of have a good outing. It sort of doesn't matter anymore if the net run rate is not taken into account. So
yeah,
the net run rate is good. I think it's fine. It's a good way of sort of differentiating teams that end on the same points. But yeah, I think just one other point on maybe New Zealand before we move. Again, super performance by them, so professional.
yeah.
Of course, they did slip up against Pakistan, but I think apart from that, they've been really strong and professional in the tournament. It's amazing how they land up in each ICC tournament and still punch above their weight. They always seem to make it to the semis or the finals. It's amazing. It's really amazing. They're complete opposites to Bangladesh, who honestly I do not understand what is wrong with Bangladesh. After having again, and we've said this numerous times, right? We said this in the preview. Like, after having played 21 years of international cricket, they still do not seem to be learning at all. Like they still seem to be the same side that they were 15, 20 years ago. So I don't understand what's wrong in Bangladesh cricket, but whatever it is, it really needs some rectification in a big way.
Yeah, maybe we'll do an episode on that someday with Athar Ali Khan as our special guest. Uh, that is wrong with Bangladesh cricket. Uh,
That for sure is, yeah.
but just before we move on to something about talking about the Indian performance in more detail, I know we've done this before, but let's do it once more. Give me your predictions for the semis and finals.
Okay, so one thing is for sure, right? Whatever we say is not going to happen
Yeah,
because that has that seems to be the trend this tournament. So my prediction for the finals is England versus Pakistan. So you know what's going to happen now. Um, and between England versus Pakistan, I think Pakistan will beat them. I think because Pakistan is a mercurial side, they are the kind of side that sort of requires a spark to get them going. And they
mhm,
got that spark just before the start of this tournament, right? When England and New Zealand cancelled tours to Pakistan in the last minute, citing safety concerns. So that was the spark they needed. They clearly look very motivated and they seem to be together, which is not always the case with Pakistan teams. So that makes them a really dangerous side, and I think it is probably going to take them across the line in this World Cup as well.
yeah, they also have beaten India, Australia, and England most probably if they win the World Cup, so they'll also have that big three thing that they've beaten. I actually think Pakistan will reach the final, but I think they might. There's going to be an upset in the other semi with New Zealand beating England. I just don't know why. I just feel that the New Zealand spinners Sodhi and Santner have been phenomenal, and I think England are just gonna. They have a couple of injuries. I just feel there's a slip up coming there, and then Pakistan New Zealand final. New Zealand in another final. Uh, let's just say New Zealand will win, just so that we have some different winners.
Yeah.
So now that you said Pakistan will win and I said New Zealand, it's going to be either England or Australia.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious now, right? Who's going to
Yeah.
win? So, but a Pakistan New Zealand final is really going to be a feisty final,
Yeah.
especially because there's no love lost there since New Zealand cancelled the series 3 hours before the start of the series of the first before the first ball was bowled. And Ramiz Raja went on air saying New Zealand will see from us in the T20 World Cup.
Yeah.
So uh, that will be something else. I just don't know how the Pakistanis are going to sledge the New Zealand players.
Hmm.
Like what language? I don't know. The only guys who can say something to them with and ensure the New Zealanders understand that is Imad Wasim. Don't know about the others. But anyways, jokes apart, that would be quite a feisty final and a good one as well.
Yeah. It'll be definitely be a language barrier from both teams in that match because even the New Zealand accent itself is difficult to understand even if they're speaking English. So yeah, but yeah, let's see what happens. Even if they play England in the final, they'll have that motivation also because England didn't even go. At least New Zealand landed there. So yeah, but even though India is out, we will still watch. I think semis and finals. It is a World Cup after all, and you can watch now with less pressure. Also, can actually enjoy the games.
Yeah, exactly. It's done. India's tournament is over. We know that for sure.
In a way, that's good. So let's do the deep dive into what went wrong for India. Don't even know where to start. There's a number of things, right? There's the whole bubble life. They've been in quarantine playing cricket since June. They played the IPL. There's the you could say there's these are just excuses, right? These are just or reasons, however you want to look at it. They lost the toss in both the first two matches. They had to bat first, which was it is not ideal in the UAE, or just that I don't know the team hasn't adapted to T20 well enough. Maybe the IPL performances don't translate onto the international stage as well as people think they might. But yeah, what is your initial take? Maybe there's a lot to unpack, I think. So where do you think went wrong?
Yeah, I think I just think that India, I think some of the important players were just not informed. I think T20 cricket is a format where you need your numbers 5, 6, and 7 to be in really explosive touch, at all times. I think in T20 cricket, numbers 5, 6, and 7 are even more important than 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now I say that because 5, 6, 7 are usually the difference between a 150 and a 180.
Yeah,
And once you hit 180, 190, it always becomes difficult for the side chasing. India is 5, 6, 7. So that's Rishabh Pant, Hardik Pandya, and Ravindra Jadeja. I think of them, Pant and Hardik Pandya were not in very good form during the tournament. They struggled for timing. They couldn't get the boundaries and sixes away. Jadeja was good, but then he had very limited number of deliveries to make an impact because he was coming towards the back end. So we somehow missed, the power or the elevation that's needed from numbers 5, 6, and 7 to sort of take you beyond a par score. Um, I think KL and then once again, this is known by numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. They are aware that the guys coming in later are probably not in good touch, so they kind of then start taking their time in the beginning to try to consolidate and build a platform. And then when they lose wickets, when they get out early, which is what was happening, it just becomes difficult to set up those big scores, because you're basically coming into the middle overs with guys who are not in form, and the openers have not been able to build a platform. So I think that is what happened. That is what happened with us in the crucial games against Pakistan and New Zealand, where somehow the batting was just not able to get going. Of course, there is an element of the bubble life. It's not easy. These guys are all playing in the IPL. Many of them are playing all formats. Even if they're not playing all formats, they are there with the team. So bubble life in UK, bubble life in UAE right after that for the IPL, and then they continued into this tournament in that bubble. So of course, there is fatigue, so that does play a part. But I think before that, it's the form of these guys that was not strong enough to actually take India through the tournament. Of course, we knew all this. We still predicted that India would reach the finals, which was kind of wrong. But yeah, I think this is what really went wrong for us.
Yeah, it's sad. It's also like we can talk about bubble and all of these the scheduling, but scheduling is done by BCCI. Scheduling, India can has enough power in world cricket now that if they want to uh, reschedule a series, cancel a series, they can actually do that. So and it's so insane that if they had played the final of this tournament, which is on 14th November, 17th November, they have their first T20 match against New Zealand at home, the
Hmm.
bilateral series. So obviously they might have rested players and stuff, but that's just a reflection of how hectic it's been. And then after that, they're going to go to South Africa to play a Test series, and it's just a lot of cricket. I don't. It's obviously not sustainable. Also, the team just looked tired. Also in the first two games, I know Kohli said 2 overs of bad cricket, and then in the 2019 World Cup, he had said 45 minutes of bad cricket. So these
Yeah,
patches of bad cricket are hurting us more than we think. It's I don't think it
exactly.
can be simplified to that extent.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the those patches of bad cricket, of course, are not great. But yeah, you're right. There is an issue with the scheduling. These guys are just playing cricket throughout the year, and of course, it's more complicated now because of the bubble life. I think we tend to underestimate how difficult it is to be in that bubble, because we don't experience it, right? We don't have to just go from a hotel to the ground and then back again into isolation. We don't experience it. So but for these guys, they're doing it uh, like week after week, different countries, week after week, hotel rooms, week after week. It does get a lot. So there's definitely something to be looked at there in terms of scheduling. But that being said, I think all the teams go through it, right? So it's difficult to just isolate that and say that that is the biggest reason. But yeah, I think all things put together, India's performance in this World Cup was quite underwhelming.
Yeah. Oh well, it. I mean, the excuses will keep coming. In a way, it is the end of an era now with Kohli now will not be T20 captain anymore. Had a uh, sad couple of months for him as T20 RCB captain. They lost in the playoffs. Indian captain didn't even qualify for the playoffs. So I mean, I kind of feel bad for him. It's his probably I see him probably relinquishing the ODI captaincy as well, which means he would not have won a major trophy as a captain. Do you think Kohli's captaincy held us back, or is there could there? I don't think there was a better choice in 2017 when he took
I
over.
mean, I think there are always pros and cons, right? I think the pros to Kohli's captaincy was the kind of never say die attitude he brought to the team, which definitely shone through, in various series that India played. Uh, they never gave up from any situation.
Yeah.
They always fought till the end. So that is something that he brought. He also brought the importance of fitness to the team, and I think that also contributed, because you look at the Indian teams of yesteryear, in the early 2000s, or even in the 2010s, they couldn't last. Bowlers
Yeah.
simply could not last for 5 test matches. In a 5 test match series, they were done after test match three. But now you have bowlers who can play throughout the series. Not only that, there is a strong pool of fast bowlers in test matches. There are spinners. So I think the importance of fitness is what has allowed them to create this pool of bowlers. So that was one of the highlights. Also, the fact that he himself contributed a lot to India's wins as a batsman during those times is also a highlight, because yesteryears, not all of India's batsmen, or not all of India's captains have been able to perform as well with the bat when they were captain. So I think those were the pros. The cons, of course, probably there could have been more done in terms of tactics. A lot of people felt that the usage of DRS, for example, I mean, the ball hit the pad and Kohli would go for DRS. Like it was almost like a involuntary action for him.
Yeah.
People do say that tactically he was not as good as some of his peers, like Rohit Sharma, for example, and probably the case. Um, but I think he did a pretty decent job with India. The blotch, of course, will remain that he never won an ICC trophy. That's going to remain with him whether he likes it or not. But he did bring quite a few good things as well to Indian cricket, so we mustn't forget that.
Yeah. Um, and it is sad. Let's look. Hopefully, we can look forward to better things with Rohit Sharma now. I mean, at least that's the talk is that he is going to be the new captain, and with Rahul Dravid as coach, it'll be an interesting one. I know he's coached under 19 teams and A teams, but I don't know how he will. If it was with Kohli as captain, I think that would have not worked out for sure. With Rohit as captain, let's see. I don't know. There might be some chance of it working out. I don't know. I
Yeah,
just want.
and
Yeah, sorry.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I was just gonna move on. But if you have something else to say about this weekend,
No, I was just thinking it'll be interesting to see how Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid work together. Of course, this is just in T20 cricket, but so Kohli will remain captain in the other two formats. So it's not like the end of his captaincy career, but you're
yeah,
right. I think at some stage he will give up the ODI captaincy, but I think not the Test captaincy anytime soon.
yeah, and he shouldn't give up the Test captaincy actually because they actually are. We can't. We'll talk about all format and all of that, but as a really good Test side, it's important to look at different formats separately. Who was even the standout player for India in this tournament? I don't even think anyone's because the last two matches I'm not even like two matches we were so outclassed that no one played well. I know Kohli played well in the first game and Pant to an extent, but the bowlers were completely toothless. Second game was just a actually second game was worse than the first game because there was like 110 we scored and nothing. We could took 2 wickets, but yeah, just completely outclassed, right?
Yeah, I mean, really, there was no noteworthy performance. I think the best performance came in the warm-up games, and it came in against Scotland the other day.
Yeah,
And of course, they did score 200 against Bangladesh, but I'm sorry, against Afghanistan. I cannot believe I just confused myself between Bangladesh and Afghanistan. But anyways, point is that it was not a good tournament for any of the players. Even the bowlers, like you rightly said, looked rusty. Um, they didn't play Rahul Chahar in the end. He was picked ahead of Yuzvendra Chahal. I don't think he even got a game. Um, they that decision of having Ishan Kishan open
yeah,
against New Zealand was odd. Obviously, the thought behind that is that Rohit Sharma is struggling against left-arm bowlers who bring the ball back in, which is what Bolt can do as well, and that was the logic or the thought behind it. but I think it sort of upset the batting lineup, right? Rohit Sharma batting at three, Ishan Kishan already taking up a few balls in the beginning. It just makes it confusing. I mean, people tend to underestimate the impact of having a player open and then suddenly come in at number three. A classic example of that is Rahul Dravid, right? He used to be India's best number three, but whenever he opened, um, he came undone. And the argument was that India's opening pair at the time was so weak that anyways Rahul Dravid would come in the first or second over. So what difference does he make if he opens? But
Yeah.
it made a big difference. So point is that yeah, they rejuggled the batting lineup for for not a strong enough reason, I would say.
Yeah.
There was the bowling was toothless. Why did they take Rahul Chahar there if they didn't want to play him? Ashwin was in and out of the team. I think also the middle order was just not up for it. Pandya and Surya Kumar and Rishabh Pant, these guys were not really in form. And when you have that happening in a T20 tournament in the middle order, you're really not going to be very successful.
Yeah, like they didn't even have their selections. It was so muddled, right? It seemed like they were reacting and not really confident in who with players that were being put out. Even and also Varun Chakravarti, all the
Yeah.
talk about him being a mystery spinner. Only mystery was that he didn't get any wickets. I think that was
Yes.
that turn. We only got uh, just took the first two games. Only two wickets in first two games. It's just not good enough. I know the dew and the toss played a part, which actually is something I think we spoke about a bit, but it's not. If we had lost the matches by in the last over with that he's taken a few wickets, if it was close, then you could have blamed. Okay, we could have batted first, bowled first, and done something different. But it was not even close. Really disappointing.
Yeah, it was not even close. The nature of the losses, right? Lost by 10 wickets against Pakistan, 8 wickets against New Zealand. Against New Zealand, we didn't score a boundary for 12 overs. Like, that's unheard of in a T20 game.
Yeah,
It is just simply unheard of. So, it was a proper hammering, I think, that India received. It's a wake up call that maybe next time they need to think about how they're approaching T20 cricket. Maybe there's no need to have KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli all go at the same pace at the top. Maybe one of them needs to be more dynamic, or two of them need to be more dynamic at the top. But again, it points back to a lot of things: scheduling and the loss of form of all the middle order batsmen. The bowlers are simply not, you know, being being good enough. So yeah, all in all, like we said in the beginning, it's been quite a poor tournament for India in all fronts. And that's evident because not one player even stood out. There's not one player who was trying to take India across. It was just nobody. There was simply nobody.
yeah. So, but the good thing is that there is another T20 World Cup in less than a year, I think. Or in October, yeah, October 2022. So
Yeah,
maybe we'll storm back and reclaim our rightful place amongst
yeah,
the semi-finalists.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And this one is in Australia, isn't it? So flatter pitches.
Yeah.
Uh, so expect some of our flat track bullies like Hardik Pandya to be back in form.
Yep.
Uh, but should be interesting. Should be interesting. See
Do
what
you
happens
think
with the new captain as well.
Kohli, Rahul, and Rohit will still be there next year in 2022 World Cup? I think
Yeah,
Rahul will, but do you think?
I think Rahul will, Rohit will because he'll be the captain, and obviously they have to take Kohli, right? I mean, let's face it, he's still India's best batsman. There's no doubt about that. So he'll be there. I think it's just the tactical, the tactics behind how they arrange their batting lineup that
Yeah,
is going to be important. I think KL Rahul, Rohit Sharma, and Virat Kohli cannot be batting the same way in
yeah,
T20 cricket. They cannot be 50 runs or 30 balls. I'm sorry, 50 runs or 40 balls if they get a half century. It simply cannot happen. So one of them needs to, in the first 6 overs, absolutely go hell for leather, like they say, and
yeah.
the others then bat around him. But that's the approach that needs to be taken. I hope they do it because otherwise, scores of 150 don't win you T20 games.
Yep. So we look forward to that. I think we've dissected this enough. It has been disappointing, but it is what it is. It's good to also watch the rest of the tournament without much pressure, and hopefully the semis and finals do live up to the billing because there are some really good teams in there. So hopefully we have some thrillers.
Yeah, hopefully we have some thrillers, and hopefully the best team wins. Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's like 45 minutes or 2 overs of bad patches
Yeah.
that kind of. But that's actually the nature of T20 cricket. So the best team won't have those kind of patches, I would say. So should be interesting. Let's see how it pans out.
Yeah. So we'll be back next week to hopefully cover the final semis and finals, and then we'll see you then. And then we have PTM series to look forward to in India, so we'll preview that as well. But thanks. Yeah, it's we are the champions. We can win PTM series, Baiju series, Oppo
Oh yeah,
series.
we'll probably yeah home series bilateral 3-0 5-0. That's how it rolls, right? So
That's just we can put out two teams, one in England, one
yeah,
in Sri Lanka, but one team cannot win. It's really frustrating, but it is. We will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in this week, and see you soon.
see you soon.